to the Everyday Hustle app. Thank you so much for coming in.
It's my pleasure, Harleen. Thank you for having me on the show.
Right, let's get started. AI is the absolute hot topic right now. It is absolutely everywhere. So let's strip it all back and strip away the hype. What is AI?
Okay, that's a big question. So let me go right the way back to what it really means. So AI, of course, is artificial intelligence.
Yes.
This is not a new phenomena. It's not a new technology. It's been around for decades, in fact. You have pundits and gurus and academics who've been studying AI for a very, very, very long time. What's hot, though, is this thing called generative AI. In 2022, when OpenAI launched GPT,
Yes.
we all got super excited and started to adopt this conversational chatbot, which is how we've become so enthused by generative AI. So there is a difference between AI. AI is generally, I tend to call it classic AI, which means it's all about predictive analytics. It's trying to predict the next big thing. Generative AI is about creating things. So poems, prose, creative writing, and it's all text-based. They call it natural language, but it's essentially based on linguistics. That's the thing that's creating hype. That's the thing that's forcing you or compelling you, inspiring you to write your next sales email or a car parking ticket penalty sort of response or something along those lines. That's the thing that's hyped up. But we'll talk more about that, of course.
It's even the images as well, right? Because that's something that I've seen quite a lot. People are using these, what you would say, generative AI. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
To create these images for whatever it is that they want. And that is an incredible piece of technology.
Yeah. So let me try and break generative AI down for you. So it runs on this thing called LLMs, large language models.
Mm-hmm.
And the concept behind this is, in a nutshell, this AI has this ability to suck up the internet. It swallowed up the internet. Now, it swallowed up websites, Wikipedia, all types of free information, right? It's like an Einstein to some degree. And that's great because you can ask it any question and it generally knows the answer regarding anything on the internet pretty much instantly. The problem is that it is a generalist tool. It's called a general purpose large language model. It's not a specialist tool. It's not an expert tool. It's a little bit like, imagine going to your GP and asking your GP to do heart surgery on you. You just would never do that, right?
Well,
You
no.
would never do that. And you would never have anyone but Harleen do the show as a human because it would be so damn boring if it was on AI.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's a personality. I'm in the studio with you. There's a frequency exchange. There's an energy. There's a charisma to this.
Yeah.
So there's certain things that humans do extremely well, and there are experts at those things. And certain things that AI can do very well at an expert level.
Yeah.
Large language models, generally like the GPTs, the Groks, the Geminis, the DeepSeeks, they're general purpose models. So within this general purpose model, it's run basically on this thing called a transformer architecture. What it really means is it's able to predict, because it's sucked up all of the internet, it's able to, with all this data, it's able to predict the next word in the sentence.
Mm-hmm.
So when you prompt it, it kind of knows what the next word will be. When you ask for a response, it kind of knows what the next word would be because it's eaten up trillions and trillions of data lines. That's what it is, and words. Now, when you add images to it and voice to it, it starts to get a little bit interesting, spicy, but also complicated.
Very.
And this is where something called hallucinations becomes a central topic that I'd love to discuss with you. This is when the AI doesn't know how to say, I don't know.
That's what I was going to ask you. Does AI have the capability of lying to us?
Gosh, so because it's eaten up the internet and because it's not specialist information, the data sources are pretty much free and available. The difference is that, like, it's essentially, I think of Google back in the day, right? It's essentially Google on steroids, a whole new level of next level of Google. And when Google came out, you used to ask it questions and it used to give you search in some form of order. It's the same concept, but imagine now it's taken all of the information out of those search links and presented it to you. That's what it does. Now, because it can't say no, it's generative. That means it generates responses, and it's not expert. It pleases you every single time.
Yes.
And when it doesn't, even if it doesn't have the answer, right, Harleen, it still answers the question, and it often can fabricate information, make up links, and hallucinate.
That's something that I have witnessed firsthand, right? I mean, I think a lot of us now have integrated AI into our everyday lives, and it's very common, particularly in creative industries, for people, because you can now bypass certain, I guess, you can now bypass certain obstacles that you potentially had previously, where maybe you didn't have the skill set to say design something, right, and then it'll do it for you. So we all use AI on a regular basis, and I have seen and firsthand tried to ask, say, GPT certain questions, and it comes back with a response that I know is not correct. So that is problematic, no?
Yeah, hugely. I think this is an interesting field of study around human behavior. I find it really amazing. Like about a year ago when we were building ReN, which is my startup, we were doing a lot of research around the good side and the bad side of generative AI models. The good side, of course, is you can get stuff done super fast, like boring stuff, draining stuff that you don't want to do. You can get it done rapidly. Absolutely. There's just no question. It is very powerful. But when it comes to serious stuff, like the analogy I gave you about the GP and heart surgery, or expert stuff like making an investment decision or picking a stock, or trying to figure out if Nvidia or Apple are still going to crush their numbers next quarter, you have to go to a high precision decision intelligence tool. Otherwise, you run the risk of losing all of your money. And that's the one thing. Rachel Reeves, for example, our chancellor, she's been focusing on creating a nation of investors. This is a rhetoric and narrative that you'll see more and more. Great tailwind for my business, by the way. And moving away from just a nation of savers. It's good to save, but it's also good to take, there's 465 billion or so of cash sitting idle in low interest bank accounts. Wow. Some of that should be moved into public stock markets. Okay. So when you're making high stake decisions, high risk decisions, you have to move towards specialist tools like ReN and many others that will emerge, like in the legal sector, for example. You don't want to be framing your contracts on one of these large language models. It looks good and it feels good, but it's a problem. Now, I want to answer your question, about adoption. So about a year ago, people were, oh my God, I'm not going to use these tools, GPT. I don't know. I don't even believe this stuff. It doesn't really work. But of course, over time, as people started to use the tools, they realized it was super powerful, so useful. You could write a speech. I mean, I know politicians who've uploaded the last 5 years of their speeches. So it's picked up their linguistic style, the way they lay emphasis in certain words. And of course, it produces the next speech based on the topic. Okay, good for them, and I think it's an important thing. Yeah. But I think we have to look at the bad side too. And there's been plenty of research done in the industry, and you should Google it perhaps, or you should go into one of the tools and ask the question as to, I think it was Harvard who put a research study together around this concept of cognitive decline. And actually, I have to tell you, even in my team, I love AI. I'm an AI entrepreneur. I believe in it, but I'm cognizant of the downsides of AI. In my team itself, I've seen certain people in my team who've now become so dependent on us using AI because we rapidly build project plans, risk registers, you name it, right? We upload a lot of information onto the system and then it responds back. They've stopped using their minds.
This is it.
And when I ask them questions about, look, let's just leave the tool aside, let's sit in a room together, human to human, and figure this out, I am seeing a form of almost clock speed decline. That means like the mental speed has gone down. Yeah. And I'm seeing it myself sometimes. So actually, I have a rule. I don't use any of the general purpose models unless I'm stuck. Or I only use it as a friend, like a companion.
That's a really interesting take, because I think a lot of us have integrated it into our lives. But I almost the comparison that I can think of, if we were to maybe look at older technologies and we could compare, maybe there was once a time where everybody could do maths in their head, high division sums in their head, and then calculators came in and people stopped needing to do those things because they could just use their calculator, and those skills died, right? My parents grew up in a time where there were no calculators, and my parents can still do long division in their head And I couldn't even imagine to be able to do something like that, because I was not taught that skill set, because we had calculators when we were in school.
Right.
So there, that in a very small way is that decline of skill set, but now we're seeing it on a bigger scale.
Yeah, I think the number was around 15 to 30% cognitive decline. And, and here's the thing, right? I put up this post on LinkedIn just a few days ago. I've been thinking a lot about this. I'm in my late 40s. I've built and exited quite a few companies. I'm an ex-corporate guy as well, and I do loads of other work. And it's all about my mind.
Yeah.
I am who I am because of my identity as my physicality, but also my mind, my energy, my personality, my style, my way of thinking, my communication abilities. And if you start to erode those, then you have a problem in society. But let me give you a really interesting example. I figured out that if I hadn't been through my traumas and my failures in life, in my work, a bad presentation I delivered, a bad proposal I wrote, and I didn't have the opportunity to fix that mistake and learn from it, which is the human in us.
Yes.
I wouldn't be the person I am today. If I hadn't the privilege of first-hand immersive experience of doing stuff, of executing, of failing, succeeding, winning, dusting myself off, doing it all over again, would I be able to appreciate the knowledge that's coming out of the LLMs? And I think I'm stronger with an LLM because of my history in business.
Yes.
So you cannot extract the doing from the prompt responses. And I fear that we're going to create a generation of people who go to prompts or go to these LLM tools for all sorts of answers, but actually don't have the real life experience.
Yes, it's fascinating stuff. So you mentioned a little bit about human behaviour in amongst this, and Af, you studied anthropology. So how does somebody who is interested in human behaviour end up building an AI company?
Great question. So can I give you the context of why I studied anthropology? Because I was a very naughty boy when I was young, and every time my parents said go left, I went right. So I was highly rebellious, and I think that has a lot to do with where people end up in their lives.
Yeah.
It's not just about academia and all the other things. So my dad said, do law. I said, oh, no, I'm not. I'm going to do anthropology. And I had someone in the family who did anthropology. I actually didn't know much about it, frankly. But I ended up figuring out that anthropology is like the origins of something, right?
Yeah.
So it goes to the root cause of why cultures are the way they are, why our civilizations the way they are. And funny enough, because of anthropology, I would argue my perspective when I came into business, my first job was with Lord Alan Sugar's company, Amstrad, Vigeland, which is a PC company back then.
Wow.
And I fell into that sort of almost accidentally. This is how life takes you in different places. And I realized I didn't have any technical ability because I never studied anything about PCs and set-top boxes. But I was able to speak, and I had perspective. I had a wide-ranging perspective. And I used that to move on to my job after that company, which was at Fujitsu, the technology company, the big Japanese technology company that used to be called ICL.
Right.
I'm showing my age now, but ICL was like an iconic British IT company that was acquired by Fujitsu, the Japanese parent. And then I ended up at Gartner, which is a big technology research company. I was super successful there, lucky. And at a young age, I went places. Human behavior for me is about what I learned first in my job, which was selling.
Mm-hmm. Selling
is almost a non-negotiable work experience that everyone should do.
Yeah. Yep. As a former saleswoman at one point in my life, sales was my key skill that I used to get myself a job. It taught me a lot, not just about business, but exactly as you say, about humans. It's very, very imperative. I mean, even about myself, it's a very imperative skill moving forward in life in any situation, really.
Yeah, I think human behavior and human decision making, I'm obsessed with.
Yeah.
And I want to give you an example, right? It's a really important example because of the volatility on the planet. In 2008, there was a financial crash around the world. And there was a chap, the late Daniel Kahneman. He was an author, a prolific thinker, and so on. Wrote this book. In fact, he did a piece of research before he wrote this book called Thinking Fast and Slow. And this piece of research is fascinating. And he studied all of the companies, all of the financial institutions that went bankrupt, essentially, and we had to bail them out
Yeah.
all over the world. And he tried to figure out why they went bankrupt. And his conclusion was groupthink. He said, look, everyone was pretty much impacted by the other person. Like there was this herd mentality of decision making. And as he was studying decision making, he said, well, let me try and figure out what are the levers of decision making, because that's what it's about. Even when you use a large language model and you're prompting it, you're making some decision or you're picking up some information to do something with it. He figured out that there are a few faculties that you've got to use to make a decision. This is what makes me really sort of feel enthused about human behavior and enamored by it. One is gut feel. Okay, gut feel. Can't explain it, intuition. Second is experience. Have you ever done it before? Like buying a house. The first time you buy a house, you have no experience, but your gut says it's a good thing to do. Maybe you do it. The third thing is data. That is so important, which is why these large language models are great, but do not make high-stake decisions on a large language model, because it eats data that is free and publicly available and doesn't know how to say no, okay, unless you move to a specialist model like ReN. Data is the third one. The fourth one is external perspective, okay, which is if you're buying a house, you're asking a buddy who's bought loads of houses, so what is it like when you buy a house? Should I buy a house? Are the numbers stacking up? So some sort of an expert, a consultant, if you will, you go to. Now, these are the four very interesting faculties, and this feeds into human judgment, all right? And I think that anthropology degree, sales, life, all sorts of other big jobs that I've been fortunate to do and run large teams, global teams, diverse teams from all sorts of backgrounds, has brought me to this place where 10 years ago I became an entrepreneur, right? I don't know if I told you this, but I actually left my big cushy corporate job, just in case people think, it was like scarcity to abundance. I had quite a lot of abundance. I was in a cushy job, doing very well at 33, 34. I threw it all to do this thing. And I did it because, one, I went through a trauma. Anytime you do something that's radical in your life, something's happened. Something's happened. And for me, it was trauma. I had some ill health, changed my perspective on life. My wife and I said, you know what? If I have a short life, I may as well give it the best shot. So I left the corporate world and I thought I'll try something new, something different. And it ended up working out really well. I built a couple of startups and I'm here. The second thing is the pursuit of ambition. And for your listeners who are listening to this, I just want them to know that a trigger is required for you to make a change in your life.
Yes.
A trigger, hopefully a good one and a nice one, but sometimes a bad one. And then the other trigger for me was pursuit of ambition. I wanted to do something big. So I wanted to make my life count. And I wanted to do something that not only helps my family, but in service of other people. We're living in a world where two important things, love and paying it forward, or helping other people, is starting to vanish.
They are.
And I worry about that.
I worry about that as well, and I think that's an incredibly noble pursuit when you are looking at starting a business. Having those things as key elements of what pushes you forward, essentially, why you're doing what you're doing, is a really good driving factor. So I think that puts you in a strong position initially, and it is fascinating to hear your story because you are doing some incredible things and you have an amazing business, and it's really interesting to see how human biology plus tech, it's really interesting to see how human behavior plus tech equals where you are right now. It's just such an interesting journey. So speaking a little bit about ReN, tell me a little bit about the business. What actually do you guys do and who does it serve?
I think anytime you describe a business, it's important to describe the purpose, all right? This is why entrepreneurs wake up. I wake up every morning with a clear sense of purpose as to why I did this, as opposed to just making money. Because at some point, it's sort of, the steam runs out, because you get many more rejections than you get acceptances, many more no's than you get yeses. And so, you reframe. You think every no is an additional step to a yes.
It's that resilience you build, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it's a personality thing as well. A lot of my mates say, Af, I'm going to build a startup, mate. So what's the next idea? And I say, listen, buddy, ideas are abundant, execution is scarce.
That's it right there. Ideas are abundant, execution is scarce right there. That's exactly it.
Yeah. And I make up these quotes for survival, because I think if I keep playing it back in my head, it's my way of moving forward. Another one, by the way, is make friends with uncertainty.
I like
right?
These are your mantras almost.
These are my mantras, and I came up with them because I went through the pain of realizing that my cushy corporate job with certainty turned into this entrepreneurial gig, which I thought was going to be so amazing, but it was filled with uncertainty and it was tough. So, to tell you about ReN, so ReN is about purpose. I feel that for decades now, there has been an injustice in the world of data and intelligence. And let me explain. So when it comes to investing, you and I putting some hard money that we want to grow because we want to build long-term wealth, we have used different asset classes. So most communities, especially the Asian communities, tend to love property. Okay?
Yeah, we do.
So anyone listening to this, you've definitely probably either bought a property or your uncle's bought one, or your dad's bought one, you've got a portfolio, or you're going to buy one, right?
Definitely.
It's a big thing. And it's part of the country, it's part of the mantra of being British is to invest in assets, in property. Beyond property, there are other asset classes, one of which is investing in stocks.
Yes.
And we just haven't done enough of it. I think it's been sad to see because investing in stocks was all about, I have a financial advisor when I'm rich and he or she does it for me.
Yes.
And then when the internet generation came about, it was, oh my God, I don't understand all these balance sheets and metrics and this jargon. So I'm just going to stay away from it and just put that 20 grand into another property.
Yeah.
That's what was going on, And I feel that Goldman Sachs type analysts and JP Morgan analysts, and it's not about these companies, but these big banks and big corporations had loads of money and have loads of money so they can buy expensive, high quality data. What about all of us then? What about the public? What about us where we have disposable income? We contribute to the GDP. We want to make loads of money too. Yes. We always had outdated information, like old information, and we had to resort to Google.
Yeah.
Google back in the day, or cheaper tools that are like graphs and charts, and there are loads out there, I won't name them, and they're fine. But there was this huge 20 billion opportunity that I discovered. We did the calculations bottom up, so we calculated the number of people we can sell into with the price of the product. That's called a bottom up calculation. And we came up with this market opportunity, which is 20 billion, which was providing high quality data, but making it affordable.
Yes.
And AI LLMs allowed us to do it. We wouldn't have been able to do it before 2022.
That's so fascinating. So what was it specifically about the LLMs? Is it that it streamlined everything for you?
Yeah, so back in the day, to do research, you had to have a human being somewhere on the planet, maybe in another part of the world, or maybe in the UK, and that person cost a lot of money, and they did research on a desktop, right? And they found stuff, and they looked at a PDF, which was like an annual report of a company, like, let's say, a bank, or the earnings transcript. Every quarter, CEOs of companies describe how well they've done or how badly they've done, and the markets are either happy or sad about it, and the stock goes up or it goes down. That's generally how it happens. And back in the day, you needed a human being to read that stuff, do VLOOKUP and search for words or numerics or data and put it into a spreadsheet, and then that turns into a website. That's how people did it. But it was really costly because you had to hire that person and tens of those people, hundreds if not thousands of people. That's how companies have been doing it for years and decades, in fact. Now it's all changed. It's changed literally overnight. And so we use something called a domain-specific language model. In short, what it means is instead of using GPT and general purpose models, we've taken millions of filings and disclosures and reports and earnings calls and policies and patent documents and put them into an AI. And we've tuned that AI on all of these documents so it knows everything about 15,000 publicly listed companies. And you can ask it those questions. It will never ever go to the internet, onto joeblogs.com or yahoo.com or whatever. It'll only go to the filings and disclosures. So you feel a sense of trust.
Yes. You
feel a sense of certainty, and you feel that this is accurate. That's never been in our hands as everyday investors.
Yeah, I think that's what it sounds to me is the key difference, right? Is when you are using things like GPT, you are at the mercy of the entire internet, which has conflicting information in it. And that's where I think we get into that space where AI might lie to you. And that's where your model is different, because it's only presenting information that you have fed it.
Indeed. There's another thing, like, Harleen, that's really important, which is about equalizing and leveling the playing field, which is, I was fortunate. I did an MBA and I was privileged that I had a certain career path, but not everyone does, number one. And because you don't have a degree or because you haven't studied accounting, surely that shouldn't be the limiter or the blocker for you to invest in Apple or Barclays or Wise or Revolut. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
And so what we've done on our platform is we've created one button answers. So if you go onto an earnings call, you don't have to read it, you press a button and it will unpack all of the risks that could affect the stock next quarter. Okay.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. If you go onto a balance
At the
sheet,
click of a button.
one click in seconds.
Brilliant.
Here's another one. If you look at the balance sheet or a profit and loss of a company, not everyone knows what that means, or metrics and ratios and stuff. So you press a button and the button's called Explain This. It explains that chart, that graph, that financial statement in seconds. It says, this is what it is, this is what it's saying, and why is it important? So it's almost a literacy tool as much as it's a decision tool.
Okay, Af. If someone runs a small business right now, what are the most practical ways that they can start using AI today?
Yeah, great question. So, look, it really depends on what kind of business, right? Because it's unfair to have a generic answer. But let me give you a view. Let's imagine you run a dental practice, okay? Because it's a small business. There are 5.2 micro businesses in this country. And you want to use AI. Now, how do you use it? So the first thing I would say you do is you sit back and you say, right, what are the problems I'm trying to solve for my business? What are the things I really want to spend money and time on? Often it comes to sales.
Yes.
People want more customers coming in. They want to do better marketing and all that sort of good stuff. You now have this almost plethora of AI-related tools that help you from email marketing to creating content. You have loads of platforms like Zeely and CapCut. You know, the young generation use CapCut all the time. I'm absolutely fascinated. I'm not as young anymore, but I'm absolutely fascinated by them. You know, in seconds they knock out content. And you can use a whole plethora of tools and you can figure out which one is right for you. They cost a few dollars every single month, okay? And what you do is you create content and you post it on social media sites like Instagram or Twitter or LinkedIn. AI tools make things happen faster, so you don't have to hire someone full-time to do it.
Yes.
Okay, there's only one caveat there, which is sometimes you want the human element. Right, let's be honest. And
Sometimes
so you
need the human element.
You need the human element. So sometimes you want the human in the loop, as they call it, right?
Yeah.
So you can buy a tool for a few dollars every month or a few pounds every month or whatever it may be. But, you know, you also want to then rely on some sort of a human expert who sort of guides you as to how that could be deployed. Often most marketing agencies today are very different to they were, you know, to pre-LLM, pre-AI, phase where they all use these tools all the time. So first is use it for selling, use it for sales, cut your costs down and get loads of content onto loads of sites so you can get offers out there and you can invite people to your dental practice. The other area is back office, which is operational efficiency, like doing things better, faster, cheaper.
Yes.
Right. So people tend to use accounting software like Xero and Sage and various things out there. They're all there and they work really well. Many of them are AI enabled. So if you're using those, you're already winning. You know, so don't be anxious about this stuff. You're probably already doing this stuff at the end of the day. But there are a couple of other things you can do in the back office, right? Let's say you have someone doing coding work for you. Now that's great. And you're building an app and you're like, oh my God, I need to upgrade my dental app or I want to have some more features. Yes, you can go to the consultant you've been using for the last 5 years. I'm not saying you can't, but you should definitely go to the consultant and say, hey, listen, do me a favor, I don't have that much money and I want to do this faster than you do it. Are you using vibe coding? Are you using AI to do coding? And if not, why? Because AI and coding is now going to be symbiotic.
I mean, I have friends who are software engineers and they absolutely are using AI to speed up the coding, because why wouldn't you? Of course they check it through and make sure that what it's producing is actually what they need. But I know software engineers who are doing this. Yeah,
absolutely. And you know, the front office, back office, those are the two big areas. The other thing you can also think about, let's assume you've got a different sort of a business, like you've got a startup like mine. Okay, so I run a digital startup. It's a data and intelligence startup. How am I using AI? Now, let me tell you how I'm using it on the back office, my secret. So we have a team of 12 and not all of my team members are equally experienced. Some are really good at something, someone's good at product, someone's good at coding, but I can't necessarily at this stage afford people at high salaries, right? So I've got to
Sure.
figure this out. So I have a diverse team. I have some young people, some apprentices, and all sorts of other people. The people who are less experienced in a trade, in an area of expertise, I get them to use the tool to guide them through the process. I say, go onto one of these tools. It could be Gemini or whatever,
Sure.
and use it to coach, as a companion, as a risk checker, or as a error checker. And every time you have an idea, go and say, have a conversation. These tools are conversations to say,
Yeah.
I've come up with this idea. What do you think? What do you think could derail my idea? I've come up with this project plan. I'm uploading the project plan. Can you just help me enrich this project plan? Can you make it better for me? I'm not sure about these numbers. I've got a presentation with my manager or my boss or whatever, or my leader or my founder. Can you just put another perspective on this? So use AI as a sanity checker, but don't go to AI first. Come up with something yourself and make it better.
Fantastic advice. I think that's how we avoid that cognitive decline, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Because we're still allowing the people to utilize their own skills and then just using the AI to upgrade them and sense check them. That's brilliant advice. And on the flip side of, so like you say you have an AI business. For anybody that wants to start an AI business, where do they begin? And is it for everyone?
Okay, I'll answer the second question first.
Yes.
No, AI entrepreneurship is not for everyone.
Yeah.
And the reason is it takes a certain personality, it takes a certain propensity to risk, it takes a certain life stage. If you are cash flow scarce and you've just had a child, for example, and I'm not saying you can't do this, I'm just being real about situations.
Absolutely.
A startup takes everything out of you. It's like a child, and I have two beautiful children, and I have my startup, and I have a wife too. So I have 4 startups, and
You know what you're talking
yeah,
about.
and I made a lot of mistakes too. A startup requires everything: your energy, your personality, your intelligence, your learning ability, your willingness to fail, your willingness to be humiliated,
Interesting.
and your ego has to go in a dustbin if you want to be a successful entrepreneur. It's not everyone's bag, but the most important thing is you need cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
If you're already struggling, you can't pay bills month on month, week on week, yes, you could argue I have nothing to lose. Maybe that's how the old school entrepreneurs used to do it. I had nothing to lose. So you're like, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. That's not a bad place to be. But you have to think about survival. In a world where we're struggling, there is a bit of a cost of living issue. There is a growth problem in our country as well. It's not just a cost of living issue.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be reframed sometimes.
Yeah.
But that's a different conversation. I would say think through why you want to do it, whether it's coming from deep within you. Is it a calling?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it just because your mate down the road built a startup? That doesn't mean it's for you. Sometimes working in a job, getting paid a salary, the certainty of getting money coming into your bank account is amazing.
Oh, what that can do for your mental well-being.
Oh my God, yes.
And like you say, having a startup is not for the faint-hearted, is it? And actually, maybe entrepreneurship is for you, but maybe it's not an AI business that's for you because of the specific skill set. Would you say that's
Yeah,
fair?
absolutely. So one of the things that I've figured out when you're building an AI, if you want to build an AI business, you listen to this. If you're not a techie, as in you don't do code or you've not been involved in technology,
Sure.
you need to go find a technical co-founder.
Yes.
It's necessary to find some AI person who can take your ideas to the next level. Ideas are abundant, execution is scarce. This is about AI execution. You need someone who gets AI. If you don't have it, please don't make the mistake of going on some website and doing a course and paying loads of money and thinking you're going to build an AI company, because there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of AI companies right now.
Yeah.
Most will fail. 99% of them will fail because they're what we call wrapper apps. And they're good. It's good to have a wrapper app, but it's pretty much like someone solving some basic problem and has GPT on the back of it. And then you could do the same, by the way, Harleen. You could build the same company and replicate it. Now it's all about who's got more money to do sales and marketing. So just be a little bit careful there. I'm not saying don't do it, but be conscious about how you do it. And you have to have a technical co-founder. Can I just say one thing? When you build a company, you have to understand that no one is perfect. I will be vulnerable. I have had 3 burnouts. Okay. So with all of my history, and it all sounds fantastic and great, please don't ever believe the stories on LinkedIn. There is a story behind a story. I have had enough trauma to write a book on, and low times, difficult times. Like, it's almost a schizophrenic life that I've lived. There's no linearity in it at all. It's not like zero to hero. Absolutely not. And you have to be ready for those hard times. And to make friends with uncertainty, you need certainty. Your family, some love, some support, some children, someone who's going to take care of you, because it's going to be damn hard to build a company, and you need that backup and support.
I appreciate your honesty with that, because that is not it's not the glamorous, the sexy side of business, is it? When a lot of the time we are sold that image of you'll just be on the up and up, but the reality is that you might burn out 2 or 3 times, and you may have to contend with some intense situations, and without the support of your family and friends. And that's regardless of AI, that's business as a whole. Genuinely thank you for sharing that, because it's not an easy thing to talk about. So before you go, Af, could you please share your ultimate hustle hit list? So this is where you found personal inspiration, a meaningful moment, or maybe even a practical life hack. So this is for our listeners tuned in right now. Could you share an inspirational book, a podcast, a TV show, or a film that's had an impact on you?
Okay, wow. Okay, so book. There is a book out there called Crossing the Chasm. It was written in the 90s and then re-released 3 times. It's been written by a chap called Jeffrey Moore. It's almost like a gospel on marketing strategy. And whilst it was written years ago, it's the book that talks about this concept of early adopters and late adopters. And Jeffrey Moore is not only an advisor and a friend, he's come on my podcast. I run a podcast too called Straight Talk with Af. And that is a book that is a necessary read. Okay.
Very interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that. I definitely need to go in and have a wee look at that. Thank you so much for coming in and having a fascinating conversation. I feel like I could talk to you for hours, and I'm so sorry that we've not got the time to be able to do that.
That's okay.
For our Asian Network listeners tuned in right now, how can they find you on socials?
Okay, great. Firstly, you can find me on LinkedIn. So Af Malhotra, AFMALHOTRA, Af Malhotra. So send me a connect, and I accept all connections. The second is our website. So it's www.myren, that's MYRENX.ai. So www.myrenx.ai. Please go take the free trial. By the way, I didn't tell you, this is absolutely free. Anyone can go on with a Google account or an Apple account and jump onto ReN and find all these stocks and make some good decisions, investment decisions. And it's only $20 a month. And by the way, it's a sales plugin. I have to do this. For any of your listeners who want to do this and you don't have a lot of capital, you're thinking, oh my God, I don't want to spend loads of money on this. Even though we've made it affordable, for £99 for the whole year, or dollars if you're listening to this somewhere else in the world, you can access ReN. And there is a code that comes up on the website, get ReN 99. You can copy the code and get it for the whole year for £99. It's insane. It's like a 60% discount.
Well, thank you so much. That's absolutely brilliant. Thanks for your time, Af.
Thank you, Harleen.